All right, let me drink a sip of my coffee. All right, so two forms of innovation. So going back really quick, innovation is the process of creating new ideas and putting them into practice. So, okay, um, my creativity was utilizing different people for tasks that is in their scope, but they didn't traditionally do it. Innovation is creating that process, right? So, two forms of innovation: process results in better way of doing things, product results in the creation of new and improved goods and services. So when you're thinking of you're using your creativity to find new innovation, you think of process and product. So examples of process is the way we do things, we do them, right? And in terms of product, how do we have improved women's health services? So a great example is utilizing nurses as educators, and this has been growing and growing everywhere you go. And who are great educators? Nurses. Why? Because it is part of our curriculum is patient teaching. Um, in medical school, they're not necessarily taught the nuances that go into teaching a patient about different learning models, about motivational interviewing. But that is embedded in all nursing curriculum, whether you start at the diploma level or the baccalaureate level. And so many organizations utilize this this role of nurse educator to provide better goods and services. So you have, you know, substance abuse nurse counselors, you have diabetic nurse educators, you have home health nurses who come and provide lactation specialists, or you have lactation consultants, and they're not nurses, but they do that. CNAs who are providing wound care. So using innovation that way so that you are changing the way healthcare is given, increasing access, and providing the best care possible. So they require invention and application. So invention is active discovery, right? Developing new ideas. Then application is using these new ideas, implementing the new ideas. And a lot of stuff I said, you're like, gosh, Denise, these ideas are doy, right? You're right, and they're not new. And I researched to find these ideas, and so however you come up with the innovation or the discovery, whether it's your own or piggybacking off somebody else's, the point is your ability to implement these things to get people to say, yeah, let's try it, is based on your leadership skills. And that's where that strategic leadership comes in. And some of you might say, well, I'm not a natural leader. People don't tend to listen to me. Leadership can be taught and learned. I don't think leadership came easy to me. I think it's something that I was taught in school and how to do it properly, and that's the point of this class for you guys, to go out there and be these excellent nurse leaders in whatever role you work in. So leadership responsibilities for the innovation process. So you need imagining, design, experimenting, and then assessing if that experimenting went well, and then scaling, which is readjusting. So 4 steps of the production innovation process. So idea creation. Okay, so you imagine and you create and you come up with this idea. I am going to, I'm trying to think of something we try to improve. All right, so many of you talked about medication errors and how meds need to be double checked by the pharmacy or double checked with 2 nurses, how oftentimes the wrong meds are in the wrong drawer. So you come up with a new idea to prevent that. So one of it can be you have at the beginning of the um, shift and the end of the shift, you and the pharmacist do a check with names and med lists and reconcile them at the end and the beginning of the day, right? Or you do chart checks to reconcile all the medication changes and you make sure that the meds are there. You do a new staff training so that nurses are constantly being reminded on double checking their meds. You have med distributing buddies, something like that, right? And then you experiment. So you might say, well, that seemed like a good idea, right? It seemed like a great idea to have 2 nurses double check each other's patients' drawers and med lists. but it took too much time. There was no way to make this time effective. Okay, you throw it out. It didn't work. Or you're like, I really liked that idea. Maybe we can adjust it. Feasibility determination. Is this even feasible? Do we have enough pharmacists on staff? Do we use an outside pharmacy so there's no pharmacist to come double check with us? Okay, that's not feasible. We have to change our idea. And then making those adjustments until you have a final application. And that goes back to that PDSA cycle I told you about. And there's many different quality improvement models. And you can utilize any type, but all of them have very similar features in that you research an idea, find out if it's good, come up with the plan, implement the plan, assess to see if it went well, and then adjust and repeat. So this again goes through that, what we just talked about, idea creation. So discovering a potential product or a way to modify something, initial experimentation, sharing the ideas, testing it, determining if it's feasible. Is it practical? I'm doing this diabetic foot exam thing and I don't know how feasible it's going to be, but it actually might lend itself to telling us, you know what, you need to change the way your staffing is done so that this does become feasible. And then final application. And it's constant feedback loop. And that's really important. Feedback is so important in healthcare. So what are the challenges of strategic leadership and innovation? All right, well, in a highly innovative organization, okay, and some of you might say, oh my gosh, well, my organization is not innovative. Corporate strategy and culture should emphasize an entrepreneurial spirit. So emphasize this idea of creating new ideas, finding needs, and inventing as the necessity, expecting innovation, accepting that failure is going to happen, and be willing to take risks. Okay, we are willing to risk that we're going to hire more staff to help with this project, and if it fails, it's okay because we know that it was worth trying because we found out a bunch of things about our organization. And you might say, I don't work for that organization. Well, a lot of us don't, right? It's really hard to affect these organizational changes in healthcare, but healthcare is moving so much faster than how organizations are willing to move, and that's okay because the positive energy and the strategic leadership that you have will help move along the organization from the bottom up. And organizational structure should be organic, and that's meaning that you're not having levels of management or levels of anything just to have them there, right? So here, a really good example is a lot of places have a medical officer, a nursing officer, and a CEO or director or operations officer. And creating positions just to have them doesn't make sense, right? But organically having them. So where I work, we have a medical director, and they're in charge of the providers. And we're learning that we also don't just need a medical director, that he needs an assistant who's more in charge of the advanced practice nurses, because that's advanced practice nurses kind of their role, they have similar goals, but they work differently. And if your leader doesn't understand that, they won't be utilized properly. But it's organically coming into place. Or a lot of places the director of nursing used to be in charge of the clerks and the clerical area. And a lot of places are finding, you know what, this is a very specific area that needs a lot of management, and organically have come up with another leadership director to take the lead on those roles. Lateral communication, so everybody communicates with one another, and this is hard. You'll talk to a lot of places and they'll say, I didn't know that was happening with the nurses. Like medical officers will say, I didn't know that they're so short-staffed that a patient receiving chemo is being taken care of a nurse who also has a patient with CMV. I mean, that's not a synergistic assignment, but sometimes it's the only assignment you can have. So having this open lateral communication and not guarding jealously the different disciplines, and then using cross-functional teams and task forces. And really successful organizations do this. So listening to, doctors listening to MAs, and MAs listening to, nurses, and this cross-functional team and task force, so that everybody's giving input. So you want to improve patient satisfaction. Well, if you just listen to nurses and providers, you're going to miss all the other stuff that the clerks notice, that the call center notices. Well, people get really upset when they can't get in the same day for a sick visit. Um, well, you don't know that. You know, a patient comes in, you just see them. Most of the time, I'm going to tell you, by the time people could get to me, they're not complaining to me because they just want to see me. But I'll tell you that the call center tells me all the time, they're so upset. It takes so long to get a same day appointment with you. Well, okay, I hear you. I'm going to add more same day appointments. I'm going to add more same day appointments. And I also am going to make a rule that if someone really, really needs to see me, they can ask specifically permission to double book. Great. And that has changed a lot of patient satisfaction. So listening to all areas. All right, so top management should understand the innovative process, right? They need to understand how it's trial and error, there's going to be risks, be tolerant of criticism and different opinions. Okay, so management should be okay with hearing, listen, I think, this way used to work 10 years ago, it doesn't work anymore, and maybe we should try this, right? Maybe we need not just a director of nursing, but a CNO, and maybe instead of nurse managers, we just need clinic managers and making sure that the goals are kept clear so that the vision doesn't change, maintaining pressure to succeed, obviously, because when you lose focus on your project, it falls apart, and then breaking down barriers. So part of it's culture, part of it's financial, and part of it's understanding. A lot of times people just don't understand what other roles can do. So staffing should fulfill 5 critical innovative roles. So idea generators, you need creative people. Information gatekeepers, people who understand the power of information, how to find it, how to keep it, how to file it. Product champions, so people who are like, yeah, that's a great idea, and I'm going to promote it until it works. Like with Magnet, they had team champions on every unit to help promote Magnet because you needed someone there all the time, constantly remind you of what that would bring to your organization. Project managers, and that's really hard. Some people might be great at generating ideas and coming up with plans, but they might not have that organizational skill to execute it. And then innovative leaders, somebody that is going to help pave change that people are going to want to follow.